Okay, in my last video, I covered a lot of the basics of initiating a phone conversation with a woman. And yeah, one of the biggest things I wanted to get across in that video is that you can't be afraid to take control of the conversation. Don't waste time with lengthy small talk about trivial bullshit. That's an ineffective conversation. You know, and that goes against everything I'm about with my Mo One approach. Is you don't want to have a conversation with a woman that's just about, again, just trivial bullshit. Because one thing about small talk, and I expressed this emphatically in my original Mo One book, is that it kills a lot of sexual tension between you and a woman. I rank that as one of the top 2 to 3 things that just kills potential erotic tension between you and a woman is engaging in small talk. Number one, it's disingenuous. Most women you interact with socially that you're attracted to, deep down, they know you want to fuck them. They know that. That's fact number one you need to understand. The vast majority of women know when you're flirtatious with them or just extra friendly with them. Deep down, they know you want to fuck them. Now, they may not know in what context you want to have sex with them. A lot of times women may not know if you want to have sex with them within the context of a long-term monogamous relationship, within the context of a long-term non-monogamous relationship, within the context of a short-term monogamous relationship, or within the context of a short-term non-monogamous relationship. So, women might genuinely be puzzled on what type of companionship you're looking for in terms of long-term versus short-term, monogamous versus non-monogamous, but they know you want to have sex with them. So there's no point of engaging in a bunch of disingenuous conversation that just avoids talking about that. See, one of the biggest things you have to do in a conversation with a woman, whether it's face-to-face or over the phone, is you have to let a woman know that you're not, something about either your words, your behavior, your demeanor and disposition, your overall attitude. You have to let a woman know that you're not afraid of being rejected by her and that you're not afraid of being criticized by her. See, once a woman can sense by your combination of your words, your behavior, your demeanor and disposition, that you are terribly afraid of being rejected by her, she's for lack of a better word, she's going to try to bully you. She's going to try to bully you. And you don't want a woman to bully you. But that's what you're opening up the door for if you show a woman that you're scared of rejection. And see, that's probably one of the toughest hurdles for a lot of men. Of all the clients I've dealt with over the years, when it comes down, I would narrow down to 2 things. Most men, number one hurdle for most men is overcoming their profound fear of rejection, and a close second is overcoming their fear of just criticisms, insults, and negative reactions. And you want to welcome rejection. You want to embrace it. Why? Because when you welcome rejection, that's going to allow you to quickly identify and weed out a lot, and I mean a lot, of potential manipulative time waster types. Manipulative time waster types. Remember I wrote that article on the Negro Manosphere, is that should be a man's first priority? That's how I deal with women, man. A lot of guys think my number one priority when I interact with women is focusing on getting laid or getting a woman's pussy wet. No. At best, I would say getting a woman's pussy wet is my second highest priority. My first highest priority is identifying women who are potential manipulative time wasters. And one thing that neutralizes your ability to do that is when you come across like you're afraid of being rejected, when you're trying to actively prevent or avoid rejection. You don't want to try to prevent or avoid rejection. If my attitude is, if a woman is just flat out not interested in sharing your company in any type of romantic manner or strictly sexual manner, you should give her an open invitation to verbally communicate that to you. You shouldn't try to prevent her from verbally communicating that to you. You should give her an open invitation. I want every woman that I've ever talked to, I've wanted every woman who wasn't interested in sharing my company in some type of sexual manner to let me know that. So I can say bye-bye, bye-bye, and move on to the next woman. So the simplest way to identify manipulative time wasters is, again, what did I say is the most important thing? You got to start talking. You got to introduce sex into the conversation. If you never introduce your romantic desires, interests, and intentions, or your strictly sexual desires, interests, and intentions into the conversation, preferably in the early stages, then you're never going to be able to identify the 5 archetypes. And see, that's the other danger of small talk. See, when you engage in too much small talk, you'll never know if you're dealing with a reciprocator. You'll never know if you're dealing with a rejecter. You'll never know if you're dealing with a wholesome pretender. You'll never know if you're dealing with an erotic hypocrite. Or you'll never know, most importantly, if you're dealing with a manipulative time waster. And see, this is where I go against a lot of conventional PUAs. Because I remember in the 2000s, a lot of conventional PUAs were always talking about what I call trivial small talk. They would call building rapport talk. That's what most conventional PUAs would call it. They would call it building rapport and trust talk. Building rapport and trust talk. And I think that's bullshit. You only build true rapport with a woman and true trust with a woman by being a real, honest, authentic individual. You can't really build rapport or trust with a woman if you're engaging in conversation that's either dishonest, disingenuous, and or just, for the most part, trivial. You're not building any rapport or trust with a woman if you're engaging in dishonest, disingenuous, or trivial conversation. How so? No, you build true rapport and trust with a woman by being incredibly authentic about why you're talking to a woman and why you ultimately want to share her company. So yeah, if you're talking about a bunch of just trivial bullshit, which is what a lot of the proverbial nice guys do. See, that's a mistake that a lot of proverbial nice guys do. They engage in a lot of conversation that's a combination of flattering, entertaining, and emotionally empathetic. Flattering, entertaining, and emotionally empathetic. When you engage in conversation of that nature, on the positive end, most women are going to like you. If you want to be liked, most women are going to like you. But what does it mean to be liked? I mean, really, in the long run. There's a lot of men who, as I speak, who are in some woman's friend zone that are well liked. Do you think those men enjoy being in that woman's friend zone? No. They would rather be either in a long-term romantic relationship with that woman or be engaging in multiple episodes of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex with that woman. No man really wants to be in the friend zone of a woman that they find to be physically attractive or sexually appealing. My thing is this: if I find a woman physically attractive and sexually appealing, I would rather her flat out reject me. And I would rather be indefinitely ignored by her than for me to end up in some woman's friend zone for a number of days, weeks, months, or even years. So yeah, kill that trivial small talk. Here's what I always say. The most small talk you should ever engage in with a woman is roughly 5 minutes. I give you 5-minute grace period to engage in trivial, entertaining small talk. That's the longest you should engage in small talk with a woman. Is 5 minutes. Preferably no more than 3 minutes, but I'll go ahead and give you 5 minutes. And I say that in my books. But once you get to roughly the 5-minute mark of the conversation, that's when you should start letting the woman know the main reason why I want to share your company is because I want to be physically intimate with you. And again, that's the only way you're going to be able to identify what type of woman you're dealing with. For example, if you want to know if a woman is a rejecter, I'll start with a rejecter. How can a woman reject you if you're spending 10, 15, 20 minutes talking about your favorite movies, your favorite TV shows, your favorite foods? How? How can that woman reject you? You're not giving her anything to reject. You're not giving her anything to reject. Because you're engaging in flattering, entertaining, and emotionally empathetic, trivial bullshit conversation. So she doesn't have anything to reject. Reciprocator. Those are the two most straightforward women you're going to deal with, is reciprocators and rejectors. Reciprocators and rejectors. How can a woman reciprocate anything if you're not giving her anything to reciprocate? What, is she going to reciprocate just your niceness? If you're talking about your favorite movies, your favorite TV shows, your favorite foods, some of your high school or college experiences, well, what is there to reciprocate? Quit trying to be Mr. Flatterer, Mr. Entertainer, or Mr. Emotionally Empathetic. Sometimes men intentionally try to be one or more of those three things, and sometimes it's just out of bad habit. Give a woman something to reciprocate or reject. Give a woman something to reciprocate or reject. That's over half the point of being Mode 1, is to force a woman in a situation where she either has to do one or two things. Either quickly and straightforwardly reciprocate your romantic or strictly sexual desires, interests, and intentions, or quickly and straightforwardly reject your romantic or strictly sexual desires, interests, and intentions. Okay? So you're going to have an extremely small percentage of women that are going to end up being reciprocators. And you have a larger percentage of women that are going to be rejectors. Those are your two non-manipulative type women. Your two non-manipulative type women. But If you're dealing with a woman that has any degree of duplicity about her and or manipulative tendencies about her, she's either going to be a wholesome pretender, an erotic hypocrite, or a manipulative time waster. And I don't have time to go in depth. If you want to go in depth about identifying manipulative time wasters, I would say reread or re-listen to my audiobook, The Possibility of Sex. Reread the ebook or re-listen to the audiobook version of The Possibility of Sex if you want to know how to identify manipulative time wasters. If you want to know how to identify wholesome pretenders and erotic hypocrites in depth, you need to reread either the ebook or paperback version of Ooh, Say It Again, or re-listen to the audiobook version of Ooh, Say It Again. Ooh, Say It Again is my book that covers wholesome pretenders and erotic hypocrites. Erotic hypocrites. Yep. But real briefly before I wrap up, see, a lot of men are too worried about offending women, saying something that women will find offensive or socially inappropriate or disrespectful or crass. You can't worry about that. You really can't. You can't worry about that. And there's a number of reasons why I would say you can't worry about that. The biggest reason is, what I've learned from my experience and observations, is there are a lot of women who are wholesome pretenders and erotic hypocrites that are always going to initially, keyword, initially, act like or pretend as though certain things you say that are of a sexually provocative nature are offensive or crass. I could give you a number of stories. I mean, literally a number of stories, but just off the top of my head, I would have to reiterate. Remember the story I told you about when I met this woman at a party. A female friend of mine sponsors a party in Los Angeles. And I met this woman. Let's call her Danielle. Met Danielle through a friend of mine. Let's call my friend Felicia. Felicia introduced me to Danielle. And when I was first introduced to her, I wasn't really Mo 1 or Mo 1 hardcore. At best, I was probably Mo 1.5 when I first met Danielle. Then about a week later, I ran into Danielle at Venice Beach. And when I ran into her at Venice Beach, I was Mo 1 hardcore. I was real explicit. And this woman did everything just short of cursing me out. If I had a video of her, she was just really critical of me, insulting of me, and just gave me just nothing but a negative reaction. And believe it or not, I wasn't that experienced at the time, so I actually took it on face value. And I was like, okay, have a good day. But then, if you know the story, then about a week later, I'm talking to Felicia, who introduced me to Danielle, both not their real names, and Felicia says, so, you left an impression on my friend Danielle when you ran into her in Venice Beach. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, you know what I'm talking about. I said, no, really. I don't know what you're talking about, because when I ran into Danielle, I was Mo 1 with her, and she pretty much cursed me out. And my friend Felicia was like, get out of here, shut up. And I was like, no, seriously. I said, what, did you hear different? And first she was like, well, nothing. I said, no, tell me. She's like, nothing. I said, no, tell me. Anyway, when I get a longer story, Felicia basically goes on to tell me that Danielle, her friend who I ran into in Venice Beach and was Mo 1 hardcore with, told her that she couldn't, after talking to me at Venice Beach, she couldn't wait to come home and pull out her dildo and or a vibrator and masturbate like crazy. She told Felicia that I had gotten her pussy dripping wet. Even though when I was interacting with her in Venice Beach. She was acting like a total prude and acting like I had totally offended her and disrespected her and turned her off. See, that just shows you, man. And again, I got so many other stories like that, but that story demonstrates that there are a lot of women, and more specifically women who are wholesome pretender types and erotic hypocrite types, that will act like they're offended by the sexually provocative things you say to them, but deep down they're not. And that's what you have to always keep in mind when you're dealing with a lot of women, whether it be face-to-face and or over the phone. There's a lot of women like, oh, just over the phone. I've had women, like, let's say I was talking to a woman. I've had women say at 9 o'clock p.m., I said something sexually provocative or sexually explicit to them. At 9 o'clock p.m., they would act like they're totally offended and put off by the things I said to them. Only for them, 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, or 40 minutes later in that same conversation, next thing I know, they playing with their pussy. Keep that in mind, fellas. Minimize that flattering, entertaining, emotionally empathetic, trivial bullshit small talk. And don't concern yourself with whether or not a woman is having a negative reaction to the things you say. That's all I got for you today. I'll talk to you some more probably in a couple days.